Hey, beautiful family. You know, in the past I used to talk a lot about the similarities and differences I saw between Christianity and other religions. Because at the end of all of it is said and done, God is a presence, and you see God's presence on people's faces. You see God's presence. You see people saying they are Christian and with Jesus, but you can tell they are not. They are carnally. They are from their mind, but they are not from their heart. And I know many Christians know this. They see them, and they know that these souls have not yet had their heart broken into by God and opened up by God, because they are filled with judgment and condemnation and fruits of the flesh. They are not filled with the fruits of the Spirit. And the reason they are not filled with the fruits of the Spirit is summed up in one sentence in the Bible. Woe unto the lawgivers, for they take away the keys to the kingdom, for they do not enter within. If you want to obey Jesus Christ, if you want to obey what he taught, you have to go in. You've got to go in and make some changes inside yourself to have the discipline to be able to do that. And the fact of the matter remains that most faiths have this mystically encoded. And at some point, these theologians, these writers, these apostles, they have all connected across the world. The West and the East is connected. The reason that Europe is so developed is technology congregates around those pathways for humans. Technology didn't congregate down in southern Africa. It didn't congregate up in the north. It congregated where the trade routes were. And so all of the innovation of humanity all around the world was collecting in one area. And likewise, so was the wisdom and the spiritual wisdom attained by seeking God in every culture. And that's why many persons are not obeying, are not doing right by their own soul by obeying Christ and going within. Seek first the kingdom, and the kingdom is within you. But when you understand something about the mystic side of these writers, because these were highly intelligent apostles across the world, they were highly efficient at what they did, and they were highly enlightened human beings. They were understanding the workings of the human nature and the mental human nature, the physical, the spiritual, to be able to access the true presence of God, that loving presence. God is a presence. He's not a concept. He's a living presence right here, right now in your life. And many have lost it. Many are still separated from that presence by their thoughts. And that leads me into what I'm about to speak about. Those who have watched me for a long time might have heard this before, but I want to touch on it again. Because that separation between God's presence and ourselves does come from carnality, from thoughts. And Jesus let you know. Many times, but he let you know in a mystic sense. There is a point in the Bible where Jesus curses a fig tree. He goes to a fig tree that is bearing no fruits, and because there are no fruits, he commands the fig tree be dead. And the very next day, the tree is dead. And the disciples are stunned that this tree has died. Many people have come up with many ideas about this, and many are relevant and acceptable. You can learn much on many levels of the Bible. Different parts of human consciousness allow for different interpretations of events. A human sitting looking at the wind blowing the leaves in the tree might just say, there's the wind blowing the leaves. But a human who goes deeper might get to the point where they go, is the wind moving the leaves, or are the leaves moving in the wind? And you're moving through these levels of understanding of reality when you do this. Or then you might get to the point where you say, which is the reality of it, that is, my mind is interpreting, my mind is moving. My mind is needing to label and interpret and place an adjective and a description on what is happening. So Jesus goes up to a fig tree, and there are no fruits, only leaves, and he commands that it be dead, and it is so. fig is not a fruit. A fig is an inwardly blossoming flower. Leaves are, in this instance, everything can have a polarity, and I'll show that shortly. Leaves can block the light as well as absorb the light. Leaves can create shadow and shade, and they can also absorb light to create fruit. However, in this instance, there is no fruit. The flower has not blossomed inwardly, and all that is there are the leaves representing thoughts, carnal thoughts. The only thing present when Jesus gets there are carnal thoughts. And these carnal thoughts of this fig tree are on the way. And the way is your journey to the state where you have God's presence with you. And when you have God's presence with you, you have set yourself on the narrow path that Jesus spoke of. This is the way, the narrow path. And so, when we move over now to the Vedas, the Hindu Vedas, the Upanishads, the beautiful book of consciousness, in there is a fig tree. And to know the secrets of this fig tree is to understand the Vedas, is what it says. And to keep it simple, it says that the roots of this tree are facing up, and the leaves are down, but the leaves are Vedic hymns. The leaves are the sweet thoughts of the developed spiritual mind, the higher mind, the fruits of the Spirit, as Jesus called them. And because the roots are facing up, the nourishment for that state of consciousness are coming from the higher ideals. And because the nourishment is coming from the higher ideals, then the leaves are the Vedic hymns. Because you're taking nourishment from the roots that face upward to the higher levels of consciousness. And as you bring down that nourishment, it allows for the leaves to germinate Vedic hymns. The leaves are your thoughts. Your thoughts become like Vedic hymns, beautiful music to the world. But what next? The Buddha. The Buddha gained enlightenment sitting under the Bodhi tree. Now, remembering and taking into consideration the fig is the inwardly blossoming flower. The Buddha sits under the Bodhi tree, and the star, the light, rises in the east. Cast your net to the right side and you will get 153 fish, Jesus said. 1 + 5 + 3 in the mystic, apostolistic numerology is the number of human consciousness, which can come as a positive or a negative. Cast your energies to the right, where the light comes from. The tribe of Judah I mentioned in my other video recently. The tribe of Judah camps in the east, where the sun rises. The right hand of God, the promised land is in the east. Cast your net to the right side. It's talking about the light within you. The light rises in the east. Buddha, whilst inwardly blossoming under the fig tree, became aware of the presence of God at that point that the star rose in the east. Woe to the lawgivers, they take away the keys to the kingdom, for they do not enter within. You cannot revert and reverse your impulsive nature towards the flesh, towards the fruits of the flesh, without finding a discipline. You have to find some sort of discipline. In Christianity, they determine it's needed that you do fasting. Many Christians partake in, for instance, the Jesus prayer, where you repeat a mantra, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. It releases much from you. It first of all takes over the mind, and then you start going inwardly. You start accepting that the mercy was given to you and that you're complete and whole and righteous and acceptable to God today. And that allows you to dare to believe that you can have his presence with you. When you go within, people, Jesus said, you will look for the kingdom, and they will look here and there, but the kingdom is within you. Take no thought for tomorrow. Take no thought for what you'll eat. Take no thought for what you're doing. You're surrendering to that presence in the moment that God brings. And that's why Jesus killed the fig tree, because it was only carnal thoughts, and the Christ nature, the presence of God, greater works than I you will do, for I will have gone to the Father. That comes from being in God's presence. It cannot be when all you have are carnal thoughts. Carnal thoughts are filled with fear and emotion and all the negative aspects of the fruits of the flesh. But when you have fruit, if that fig tree had fruits, that means the person would have been blossoming inwardly, and the Christ could have been born in their life. But because only carnal thoughts were there, he couldn't be there. And so the very nature dies. And likewise, thankfully, we see another example in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, that this beautiful fig tree has Vedic hymns for leaves, but that's because its roots are facing up and it's taking its nourishment from above. And so as it blossoms inwardly, the thoughts that exude from it are the teachings of the sacred and the teachings of the presence of God. And likewise, Buddha found God's presence by inwardly blossoming under the fig tree, by casting his net to the right side as the light came from the east. The light within us, the right hand of God, comes from deep within our soul and radiates from our face, our heart, and everything about us. And this is the importance of understanding why Christians have to fast, and why Buddhists say you have to meditate, and why being conscious of each and every moment is the only way to truly live in line with what Christ asked. And if you are not conscious in each and every moment, you simply are vulnerable to sin. And that is, be cautious, as it says, for your enemy prowls around like a roaring lion seeking who he can devour. The only way to be cautious, if you are in the bush here in Tanzania and you need to be careful of leopards and lions, you're here. You're right here. You're listening to everything. You're not thinking about tomorrow and yesterday. You're right here. You're observing. You're being careful. You're processing what's going on. Be careful. The only way to be careful is to be conscious. The only way to be conscious is to make sure you go within and silence all of that junk that is chattering around you because of all the TV and computer and all of this stuff. And then you can walk in God's presence. And he walks with you in a state of awareness, consciousness, and alertness, so that you can become a mightily efficient tool to bring the love of God into this beautiful paradise, potential paradise that we call home. God bless, guys. Bye.
Hum peace, hum love, hum bliss, hum Bhagavan. Hum peace, hum love, hum bliss, hum you are one. Nam Namo Bhagavan. Om Namo